6,000 pounds sounds like a lot of car, and it really should be, but as it turns out, it doesn't necessarily have to feel like it. This is the 2024 Range Rover SV. This is the new flagship model in the Range Rover line, and for all that's loaded into this thing, it actually feels surprisingly sprightly. We've had a few years now since the new generation L460 Range Rover was introduced back in 2021. Now for 2024, it's been upgraded with this new flagship SV trim, and Rover has really loaded in the feature content here. Whether you're in this thing as the driver or the favored passenger, the Range Rover SV is a plush and modern vehicle. It's also one that comes with a few, sometimes comical shortcomings, but we will get to those. For now though, the highlights. A lot of power, fabulous comfort, surprising efficiency, and all in all, a very pleasant ride. This is a very capable SUV, and through the course of this week, we have done loads of highway commuting. We've run it all around town within Toronto. I've taken a group of friends up north to go target shooting. I have towed a project car several hundred kilometers. I've pulled a trailer even more. We've done loads, and through all of it, despite its big $300,000 headline, this Range Rover has really just sort of fallen into the background in exactly the way you would want this sort of vehicle to do. Just cruising about, it's smooth, it's quiet, it's pleasant. It's all of those things that you would expect it to be. And it's been so fabulously supple. It's been a lot of fun to play with. It's got party tricks and gimmicks out the wazoo. And it's also actually been surprisingly efficient. And that's probably where we should start, because the powertrain is a big part of the show here. The 24 Range Rover SV steps its power up pretty significantly. Using that BMW-derived 4.4-liter twin-turbocharged Hot V V8, now augmented with mild hybridization, this thing is pulled with tremendous torque, yet without actually necessarily feeling like a powerhouse vehicle. Now, this is something that is honestly a little bit tricky to try to articulate. You see, as up and in your face as the Range Rover's status signaling may be, this has been surprisingly discreet about its power, both internally and outwardly. Yes, if you pound the throttle, it will make a bit of a V8 burble, but by and large, and especially thanks to the dual-pane acoustic glass all around this vehicle, it's just really quiet, it's really steady, and when you start to give it pedal, it just eases in steadily, smoothly. It's linear. It's always got what you ask for it to do, and it never feels like it's lacking or like it's overcompensating. With that being said, it can be easy to forget just how much power there is here. Upgraded now with that mild hybrid tech, it puts out 607 horsepower. That, with 553 pound-feet of torque, makes this thing surprisingly quick. 4.5 seconds to 100 kilometers an hour. That is sports car fast, and yet it's all in this big plush sofa of a vehicle. It's not just that either, because towing, this thing is formidable. 8,200 pounds in this spec. That is more than a lot of pickup trucks will pull, and it does so with surprising ease. Run through the same ZF 8-speed automatic transmission that's in basically everything nowadays, including all of the JLR product line, it just does its job dutifully and quietly. Merging into traffic with a 4,000 pound load out back, or a gross of some 10,000 pounds total, this thing didn't really bat an eye. Indeed, it accelerated faster than the car I was pulling would have under its own power. There's just so much here, and yet, as we've said, it just does so without you noticing. Also accomplished with ease and no real drama is the way the Range Rover maneuvers just within the city, thanks to standard rear wheel steering that can pitch up to 7.5 or so degrees at the rear end. That means that this thing spins around in just over 30 feet. That means that here on this Toronto street, with traffic parked on both sides, I can pull a very easy U-turn. Just like that. No 3-point required. Like, what? The rest of the drive, of course, is made easy by the stuff you would expect. You've got your usual suite of modern driving assistance, adaptive cruise control, helpful lane keeping and steering assistance, the whole bit. It's really improved over the early generations of these systems, and while still not perfect, especially when you're crossing between lanes or when other vehicles do the same, this has been a very easy highway cruiser. Also improved too is how all of that is communicated. You've got a head-up display, which honestly isn't actually the best. The black pixels put out a lot of distracting light for this big disruptive black rectangle when you're driving in the dark. But otherwise, the infotainment and displays in this thing have improved and really proved quite pleasant to drive with. Most eyes will gravitate toward this 13.1-inch curved glass display here in the center. With Land Rover's excellent new infotainment suite, it is a really slick setup. It can be a little inconvenient to actually find what you're looking for in there at times, but by and large, everything is presented in a very responsive, modern way. We've really moved beyond the headaches and disappointments of JLR systems of years gone by. Right here in front of the driver, though, is the real highlight, a fantastic 12.3-inch display that's squatted and actually curves out with the bezel. It's a really nice, unusual, non-rectangular readout, which gives a really premium feel. It still customizes in the ways and with the interface, more or less, that we've come to know from the Defender and other products going back a couple years, but it's all really nicely done. It just makes things feel premium. And of course, that really is what you should be expecting of this product. You see, the Range Rover isn't really a value buy, and especially not in this case here. This thing comes in at just around twice the price of a base Range Rover. This SV has a load of options, and the SV trim itself adds a lot too. Some of our industry colleagues taunted early on, asking if we could find the extra $140,000 of content in here because they couldn't. But at the same time, that's not really the point with this or anything in this segment. You see, no one buys an Alabama-built Maybach GLS thinking they're actually getting $300,000 worth of SUV. No. Really, you buy this so that when that tasteful bastard Paul Allen pulls out his cream-colored business card with that beautiful brown serif font, you can drop your SV key fob and show that, yeah, you can pay over MSRP just like all those Porsche drivers who have their silly vanity plates. It's a power move, and honestly, as vehicles go, it does that well if that's what you're into. This here, with its satin finished paint, with its huge stature, with the ability to raise it up extra high with off-road mode, just to really stand out physically above all the other cars in traffic, it's a statement. And if you're rolling around Yorkville and Toronto, it does what you expect it to do in that capacity. This thing screams money, it screams power. And to be honest, while it may not be to everyone's tastes, I must admit that as this sort of purchase goes, it does seem, I would argue, one of the more tasteful ways of doing it. You aren't getting that big, in-your-face, obnoxious, honestly ugly chrome grille with those silly 23-inch polished aluminum wheels that you would on the Maybach. No, you get dark, or whatever your spec, 23-inch wheels that play things a little quieter. You get some actual off-roading pretense in this instead of that straight-up tarmac queen Maybach vibe. You get established brand recognition and a clear delineation of product lines like you won't get from the Benz Maybachs. And you get a slightly more respectable old money air about you. None of that nouveau riche Burlington chic of the Maybach. Of course, it isn't all totally rosy here either. Up front, that BMW powertrain is quite nice. Unfortunately, those heat-soaked turbochargers right between those hot cylinder banks are a constant point of derision among technicians. Yes, you've got nice passenger features like these nice screens here, which your passengers can connect HDMI devices to or what have you. They get their own headphones down in the door. It's all very fun. It's all very airplane. Apart from the fact that these sorts of systems tend to date very rapidly, they also interfere with certain basic functions, like seat folding, which with the front seats adjusted just for a 5'8" me will very often collide and force these things to retract. Like, guys, come on. These seats should be able to fold without me having to come from the tailgate all the way up to the front to manually move my seat out of position. And then there are the stairs, the looks of derision from pedestrians as you drive about even the more moneyed parts of town. This is a statement vehicle, and you must recognize that as an exercising conspicuous consumption, you will be seen to be someone who exercises conspicuous consumption. So then, would I spend $140,000 on a base Range Rover? Probably not. I would probably try to go Porsche Cayenne at that point. Would I spend $300,000 on a tricked out Range Rover SV? Maybe. You see, I make those Maybach references because I am genuinely impressed by how this thing betters that vehicle. No, it doesn't have quite the same cleverness in its suspension control. It doesn't feel quite so masterfully managed over certain undulations. The air ride is very comfortable, it's very pillowy, it's very plush. But it doesn't feel smart in quite the way all the talk of predictive technologies and all of the literature about this thing may want you to believe. Those 23s look cool, but I do wish there was more rubber to absorb the small, immediate impacts. It's very steady over large, sweeping bumps, but those little shocks still find their way into the cabin. And when you're riding something that's otherwise so impressively quiet, including, I must say, well insulated from rodent tire noise, it's a small qualm, but by the time you've filtered so much else out, every little bit matters. Taken in context though, this here $300,000 SUV does actually feel worth the extra $100,000 because it feels like it's supposed to cost the extra $100,000. And as much as that pains the low-paid writer in me to say, that is ultimately what this sort of vehicle is about. You know what? It plays that role respectably. And for that, I've got to say that this Range Rover SV plays to its strengths well. For Driving.ca, I'm Mel Alder. For more luxury SUV news, reviews, previews, specs, tests, and all the rest, be sure to follow us online on Driving.ca and check out our socials over on Instagram and Facebook.